Think positive, man. Think positive. Be good. Today's a new day. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us. And today is Thursday, 19 March, 2020. And we are dealing with a weird world. It is a crazy world out there. So today's guest, I've got Ray Hespen on, and we're going to talk a few things about maintenance. We're going to talk about a few things that Matt wanted to bring up. We're going to talk about potential best practices going on with rent collection this 1st of April. There may not be a right way, but we'll kind of talk through some ways. So Ray, could you give us a quick intro for those that may not know of you?
So Ray Hespen, I co-founded a maintenance automation platform, Property Meld. So we specialize in automating the communication, scheduling, coordination, follow-up of repairs. We've been doing it since 2014.
Awesome. And Matt Whitaker, please introduce us real quick.
Yeah, I'm Matthew Whitaker. I'm a huge Brad Larsen disciple. I own a company called gkhouses. We're in 8 different markets across the country, from Denver down to the southeast, and we manage about 2,500 homes. So super pumped to be on here and kind of help people with this kind of COVID-19 thing that's going on.
Cool. Well, I'm the least cool of the 3 of you guys. And my name is Brad Larsen. This is true. Brad Larsen, we run RentWorks here in San Antonio, Austin, manage about 900 single-family homes, and also the Property Management Mastermind podcast with the Property Management Mastermind Conference as well. So let's get into it. Matt, you start off with one of your topics. Hit me, please.
Yeah, I think one of the most important things as property managers, we need to be figuring out what happens if residents don't pay. Not how to communicate with residents. We're going to talk about that later in the show, but let's plan on residents not paying and what's going to happen if we don't get our management fees. So very important SBA disaster loan program for small businesses. I'm pretty sure all this got passed. It was on the president's desk yesterday. I hope it got signed either last night or today. And I think it did. But basically what it says is it's going to allow us as small business owners to get 6 weeks worth of our payroll paid in a loan, or given to us in a loan. Again, SBA is renowned for a lot of paperwork. This is supposed to be almost paperwork free. All the bank has to do is get a P&L showing what your what you spent in 6 weeks of payroll, and essentially give you this money. And the terms to pay it back are like 3.25%, could be as long as 30 years. So, I mean, it's like really almost cheap, free money for you to make sure that you weather the storm. What I'm advising people to do is to go ahead and start kicking this off. If you haven't had a conversation, you get this through your local bank. So whoever you have a relationship with, this is not something you necessarily go directly to the SBA. You're going to go to your bank, through your bank, and it's going to be 100% guaranteed by the SBA. So the bank gives you money, the SBA guarantees that money. So
that's a 30-year amortization with any sort of balloon, or what's the repayment schedule like?
I think it's just a 30-year straight am. I'm not 100%. I mean, it may be 15 years, but either way, it's a lot of money, relatively speaking. It's obviously relative to your business, and it's at 3%. I mean, it's basically free money. They're giving it to you to weather the storm.
So let's talk some numbers just for fun. Matt, what's your monthly payroll?
So we think we can get, ours is in the 100, what we think we can get from that loan is somewhere around $190,000, $200,000. So, do the math on that for the month, but maybe $120,000, $130,000 a month.
Yep.
So that's what we're already having conversations with our bank about. And our bankers got it. Totally understand it. Let's make sure it goes through. I think what has to happen is each of our counties need to be declared a disaster zone for this money to be eligible. I think that we're about to just blanket the whole United States and say everything's a disaster zone, so this money will be available to people.
Yeah, the state of Texas came out today. Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas, came out and named the whole state a disaster zone. And so by doing that, he limited all of the restaurants and the bars and the public meeting places, minus grocery stores, minus even shut down gymnasiums. I mean, it's getting serious on that level. So if that's a requirement, I want to be looking into this, because I think that's a very good thing to help, because I just had a conversation today with both of my accounting coordinators, and we're trying to figure out ways to do the what if scenario. What if we just see a 50% delinquency in April? You know, what are we going to do for cash flow wise? Like, you know, how do we make payroll? And so I'm going to make the phone call after we're done here to my banker, and I bank with Seacoast Commerce Bank, and I'm going to contact them and say, look, what can we do to get in line for this? Because I'd rather take that loan out. And if they give you that much time to pay it back with that little interest, dude, that's free money. And you'd be silly not to take advantage of that.
Yeah, I mean, in a worst case, you know, you don't have a disruption, and now you got some extra cash that maybe you can be opportunistic post all this stuff clearing up. But you don't want to get into a worst case scenario. I mean, the last thing you want is to be chasing after that money with payroll coming due, and you're trying to get all the money in your account. I mean, go ahead and set this thing up, get the money, and be ready for it. I mean, it makes no sense not to. It's so cheap.
It's more likely a line of credit type deal, to where they're not just going to give you a big lump. It might be just what you have to draw. They might give you an approval for $200,000 per fund, but Matt, you might only need $50,000 that month to really kind of bridge the gap. And so that way you're not encumbering your business by too much, and have some sort of, you know, again, a monthly payment that you may not really want.
Yeah, I don't know exactly how it works because it's all brand new. I mean, they're kind of making it up on the fly like they do a lot of times in disaster. So this is not, you know, it may not be exact. It may not be a line of credit. It may be a straight loan. Whatever it is, go out and get the money. I mean,
yeah. Let's switch up and let's let Ray talk for a little bit. I mean, he's such a pretty face. He's down at the bottom of the screen. I just want to pet his hair. I'm so jealous. You know, both of you guys have really good hair. But Ray, to his credit, wrote a really good article recently, and we shared it in the notes. That's going to be in the notes for this video. And so Ray, can you give us a little bit of what the article's about, and kind of synopsis of where you think this thing is heading in the maintenance realm?
Yeah, so I think one of the interesting things is there's no playbook for what we're going through, and that's probably one of the most interesting things, right? If we just look at financial recession, it's like 08, 09, we saw some certain markets really tank, but this is different because it's impacting people's lives and health. And so, you know, we kind of took that, you know, and really spent time with property management firms and tried to gain an understanding of how they were handling this, both from an economic, but health-driven way of how they're dealing with this scenario. So we basically put together around 4 subsections of things that all property management firms should be doing when dealing with maintenance. And, you know, Matthew Whitaker is one of the people that I had some conversations with about this, as well as, you know, a handful others of folks about this. And one of the big things is, you know, just making sure that the communication is just heavy on this. Everybody's wondering what's happening, what do I get to have done, everything like that. And so communication is so important. And it's not just, you know, letting somebody know of something, but, you know, there's a calming element to it that I think is really important here. And that was some of the things that were interesting. Tim Wayner had mentioned giving a sense of normalcy and calmness in the situation. That's going to get you your desired outcome anyways. So not just communicating what's happening, but trying to provide that sort of normalcy and calmness is really important. The other thing back was, you know, pushing non-essential repairs. So you can't necessarily, and you start getting into HIPAA world, if you start asking about people and their health conditions, you start to run into some scenarios there. So making sure that you still want non-emergency repairs and you still want to not do them if somebody is sick in the home. And there's a way to do that. So some of the interesting scenarios that we've seen is for them to message or somehow get in front of residents. In our portal, we built a feature actually for this, but if it's non-essential, if anybody's exhibiting, you know, flu-like symptoms, we ask that you don't submit it. So you're not getting into a scenario where they're admitting to or not, but basically trying to push off non-essential, non-emergency repairs in the meantime. There's a lot of requirements that you have to in a lot of elements. The laws haven't been changed for the sake of COVID. So you've got to still go after, but it's trying to get them to acknowledge that, hey, if you don't have to, it's better for everyone, and just communicating that.
Have you been in conversation with any third-party vendors, like, some plumbing companies or air conditioning companies, stuff like that, where they've expressed concern or policy? I mean, what have you heard from the vendors that are using your service and executing the repairs, oftentimes for us?
So it's interesting. The big thing is everybody wants to know if somebody's sick at the home. Like, everyone wants to know that. And so, the big things that we're hearing is like actually empowering employees to not do a repair if they feel like they're in harm's way. That's the big element there. That goes for folks with internal technicians. It goes with vendors, and that's been a lot of communication that's happening there. Making sure that they know that if they don't feel comfortable, someone's hacking up a lung inside a unit, and they don't feel like the 6 feet to 10 feet is going to do anything. Just you can still have that ability as a person and get out and protect yourself. So that seems to be. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, one of the things that I found is that our maintenance guys are not like, they're almost under scared of this thing. And so I want them to be, not to be flippant. I want them to be more, I wanted them to be more cautious, right? Like, assume, even though nobody's sick in the house, let's assume that people are sick. And if they were sick, how would we operate within that home? Our guys are like, it's not a big deal. And I don't want that. I want them to be more cautious. So that's the other thing that I feel like we need to communicate is we need to communicate to our team when they undersell it. You need to say, hey, I want you to operate with caution. One of the things I found was Peloton, actually. I got a list of things Peloton is doing with their installers. And I figured Peloton probably had a bunch of high-paid attorneys that put these kind of steps together. And that's what we use for our maintenance guys. Hey, these are the things you need to do when you're going into a home to make sure you're safe. Wearing gloves, wearing booties, making sure you wash your hands with some sort of disinfectant when you are with some sort of hand sanitizer when you leave. Also wiping down the inside of your truck on a daily basis at the end of it. So Peloton had like 7 or 8 things that they were doing. And I thought, hey, why would we not just borrow this from Peloton? I mean, they're the ones spending a ton of money on attorneys, and they're going to know what's safe. So, that's what we're doing at GK Houses with our team.
And that was, so when we had some conversations about it, Matthew, now that I know that it came from Peloton, I'll actually put it in the blog instead of, but no, I'm kidding. No, and that's good. That actually goes into the next thing that we talk about, which is like PPE and behavior of maintenance personnel. So like, one of the big questions is, people are still focusing on, is it gloves enough? You see these masks, a lot of people are, wearing masks that aren't going to do anything, but there are some common things that are happening, and there's still things we're learning today. So some of the common PPE, gloves are an automatic, teaching people not to touch their face, like those sort of things. I even heard goggles, like, your over-eye goggles to prevent stuff from coming in. It's the stuff you would wear in like chemistry lab class to prevent yourself from getting some things in there. And so, there's a variety of PPE that we suggest that basically that folks could use. But one of the big things is the behavior, actually. It's, how are you touching stuff, how far away people are. One of the things that we heard was really interesting is they actually will notify the residents ahead of time that if we do got to go and do that repair, we ask that you not be there. Recognizing there's like quarantine stuff, but if it's just not being in the room, if it's not being in the house, if you can find a way to go outside and still be socially responsible. It's like just getting away from the scenario of that maintenance technician and the renters being in close contact. And then I think those are really great, Matthew, the things that you said just about making sure that they're washing hands after every job and just making that a habit, and making sure that they're aware of the risks. And then go ahead.
What we want to do now, not to cut you off there, Ray, but let's kind of switch gears. And it might be something more out of your realm, but you can definitely chip in, is what are our best practices around tenant communication about paying rent 1 April, 1 May, et cetera, whenever rent is going to be due in your scenario? What are some of the best practices? So to kick this off, we've seen property managers online and the forums try to be proactive, send out a nice message to the tenants, and they've been, for lack of a better term, absolutely crucified by tenants taking that as they're being heartless. when they're not. They're really not. They're just trying to get ahead of the potential concern and send out a notice to the tenants that everything is, status quo, pay your rent on time, everything's online, you don't have to come in, et cetera. We're practicing good habits on maintenance. Okay, I mean, these things are coming across in newsletters. And so there's no right answer to any of this, okay? But it's concerning if you're sticking your head out of the foxhole and getting your face shot off because of trying to do the right thing. You're trying to be proactive. Matt, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, we've waffled back and forth. I mean, I have an email drafted, and we actually even created a website that was essentially showing people where they can, get help with their rent, like Catholic Social Services, local places in each one of our markets that would help, pay 1 month of rent, utility bill, people that would help them pay with their utility bill. But we've not sent out the email yet because I saw some of those same things that you saw, Brad. And we're trying to say, do we want to do this kind of a la carte? Like if somebody emails us, hey, what can I do? I've lost my job. Here's some resources, and then use that as a resource. Or do we want to send it out and get proactive and tell them, hey, here's some resources if you're looking. We haven't really settled on what we're going to do. We just haven't sent it out yet. And so we're kind of as confused, I think, as everybody else is. I know there's some looking for some best practices on the forum, and I've been following those conversations.
So what we've decided to do, at least for now, I mean, it's the 19th, our tune might change next week. We got another full business week and then some before rent is actually due Wednesday the 1st. So that's, almost 2 weeks away. Okay. So that's different for everybody. I'm just saying this is changing so rapidly. It could, who knows, our comments today could change tomorrow. So what we're going to do is basically keep the maintain the status quo. So I don't believe we're going to send out any sort of email. The policy is still in effect for rental payments, for late fees. All of that is still in effect. But we're going to work with the tenants that identify as delinquent. We'll work with them. We'll find out what's going on with their issues. We'll find out what they can pay. Try to get them to pay to, try to eliminate, what they may end up having to pay for late fees. But you just can't wave that stuff across the board, okay? Because it's too broad of a stroke, and this is so new. Mm-hmm. We're not going to be heartless. We're going to work with our tenants because the bottom line is, I talked to Tracy Strike this afternoon, the bottom line is we got to keep these tenants in the homes because we're looking at a 1, 2, 3 month, knock on wood, problem, not a 12-month problem. Yeah, so if we can survive the short term, we're going to create clients for life, very grateful clients. And I believe that those clients want to do the right thing and get caught up. But in the restaurant industry, I mean, come on, they're shut down. What are they supposed to do? And so there's going to be some situations where their employment has just gone away, and we're going to work with them on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, Brad and Matt, just out of curiosity, how much your folks pay online versus some other form of payment?
94% pay online. Only about 5, 6, 7% pay in person.
Matthew, where are you at?
Yeah, it depends on market. I mean, Denver and Nashville, we have a higher percentage pay online, probably closer to that 90%. In an area like Birmingham, we're probably in the 60, 70% online.
So, and one of the interesting things, and I don't remember where I saw it, so I don't want to take credit for this, but one of the things I saw was somebody making a real push to online payments as kind of like a method to get ahead, right? Because if someone's I'll give an example. I'm trying to pay my gosh dang tags on a vehicle I bought. I can't even go to the courthouse, so I can't pay them. I can't go down and do my thing. But one of the things that'd be interesting is there a proactive opportunity of actually like finding out who those renters are and calling them and getting them set up with online payments would be a way to mitigate some of that, creating that ease of transaction, reducing the friction, could have an impact. It's not going to have an impact on, like you said, Brad, if somebody just doesn't have the money and some of the states are preventing eviction, then say, do you choose food or do you choose rent? So couple best practices. So we always have a computer kiosk set up and ready to go at the office. So if somebody walks in and wants to apply and or they want to pay their rent, we physically walk them 5 foot over to the computer, sit them down, and we walk them through how to set up a rental payment on an internet space right there in our office. The other best practice is we're going to have owners that tell us
don't worry about the April payment. Don't worry about the May payment, right? There are going to be some owners out there who are very altruistic and they want to understand all this and be very sympathetic to the tenants. We need to get that in writing. Okay, so if an owner says, don't worry about the late fees and don't worry about the April payment, we'll catch it up from them later, get it from that owner in writing via email, because you don't want that to come back and bite you as a property manager. They come back to you in June and July, well, where's April's payment? Well, Mr. Owner, we had a conversation back in March that you said not to worry about April's payment, remember? No, I didn't say that. I want my April payment. And so, again, owners, this is a minority. We're talking minority, but I've been around long enough. Matt, you're smiling. You know there's going to be some slicky boy owners out there that pull that crap on us. So everyone be careful and get all that stuff in writing, but keep the tenants in the homes, work with them. You don't want them to be vacant because it's going to be a tough deal right now to fill the vacancies. Very tough.
And the interesting thing for me in all this, right? Like if the revenue is not collected, the rent's not collected, the property management firm is not going to be able to collect the management fees, and obviously the owner and investor is out.
Well, here's what we're planning on doing is we have reserves from the owners. We can collect anywhere from 1 to 2 months of management fees out of that reserve from the owners and replenish that later on, because we have a business to run. We have an obligation to be able to make payroll to keep the business alive, to represent the owners. And so that's what we can use that reserve fund too. In addition, we have a monthly flat fee payment. So there's percentage based, there's minimums. We're still charging management fees. So if the tenant is able to pay something, we can take the management fee out of that and credit the rest to the owner and continue to work with the tenant to catch up. I can do some math scenarios, but that's what we envision, because again, we have to keep the business afloat in this very difficult time. And that might include layoffs. We've talked about some of that stuff already, just to be worst case scenario. I'd say the SBA loan that Matt talked about, that's something that could be a lifesaver, to where that avoids us having to make some very tough decisions on making layoffs and or terminations.
And I'll just throw in one more thing to that. There's a sick time policy for people that don't have sick time policy, is another way to potentially leverage a layoff with keeping the person paid, sort of thing, right? Is another tool as well. We haven't looked too deep into it, but I saw that passed as well as a subsidy to that.
I've actually got that. So that was another thing I was going to communicate, is there is a tax credit for workers who take PTO for COVID-19 related issues. So whether they're sick, they think they're sick, or maybe they're just taking care of their kids. You need to be prepared to document that PTO. You are required by law, if you're under 500, to give them this PTO in excess of whatever PTO they've already earned. So it's kind of interesting too. One of the things we're looking at is everybody's working from home. I'm one of the only 2 people here at the office today. But if you think about it, you've got a lot of people that are probably normally would work an 8-hour day here at GK Houses. And they're really now, because their kids are home, they're only working a 6-hour day. So we're only getting 6 hours of productivity out of it. It just is what it is, right? And we can say, oh, we'll make up that 2 hours in the middle of the night when the kids go to bed. But the truth is, they're really probably only getting 6 hours. So what we're asking them to do is essentially, we're accounting for the time they would normally have in an 8-hour day here. That other 2 hours is going to be COVID-19 related PTO, because they're making their kids lunch. They're taking their kids to the park. They're doing things that they wouldn't normally do, but it's taking away from the production of our business. And so we're asking them to fill out a spreadsheet. Hey, don't worry about it. You're going to get paid the same thing, but you be honest with us and tell us how much time you worked for GK Houses today and how much time you was COVID PTO. And we're going to get reimbursed at the end of the year for that time that we pay them. So that's one thing that small business, all of us need to be doing. There's not a ton of rules around it yet, so you just need to document. And that way you'll get a dollar for dollar tax credit. In other words, you pay your employee $1, your team member $1, you're going to get a tax credit of $1 at the end of the year off of whatever money you make.
So smart, Matt.
Matty is the smartest man in the room for sure. Let's talk about some positive things. All right, let's hit with a good topic for the last 5-6 minutes here. I was talking again with Tracy Strike about this. If there's one thing that's going to come out of it, this is going to be a self-check for the business owners. We're going to look at all the fat that's around our business, office space, extra staffing, extra expenses we may not need. And we're going to start to realize, okay, we can run a lot leaner than we are by potentially cutting a few things. I mean, I've got a big giant office space and I don't need that much. You know, if we start working from home on a continued basis, right, which is a big if. So if any of my staffers out there are listening, I can tell you with all certainty that I believe that the productivity goes way down at home. You'll never convince me otherwise, ever, ever, never, ever. And so not even if there's a fire, you'll never convince me that if there's a better way to work and it's at home. You'll never convince me of that versus the collective genius that happens in the office, okay? So, but having said that, do we need this giant office space that we have? You know, can we cut that down to half? Do we need this extra staffing person? You know, do we need to trim salaries here and there? Do we need to potentially outsource to hire more team members, remote team members in Mexico, and less full-time team members in the States? There are certain things that we could or should be doing, and this is going to be a drill for us as business owners to realize we may have opportunities there to, again, trim the fat and lean up our businesses a little bit. Guys, what are your thoughts?
I got two things before Matt comes in all super smart and makes me feel stupid. There's two things. Number one, I was in the construction materials business. I posted a video on a LinkedIn. I think you're 100% correct. I think the people that make through this can actually increase their profit margin. That's a period. The second thing is, you know, anytime we go through something like this is housekeeping of the economy. Who are the strong players and who are the weak ones? There's going to be some people that don't make it through it, and that's the reality. And for those that do and find ways to do well and make this profitable, it's actually going to end up better on the other side for just increasing the market share that they can go after. So that's my 2 points on that.
Yeah, I would just expound on what Ray said. My message when I'm talking to property managers is everybody's just thinking about survive. And honestly, most of the show's been about surviving, and that's very important. But you also need to be taking some time and thinking about thriving. Like, how can you come out of this thing? Ray actually challenged me on this yesterday on the phone. How can you thrive in a time like this? Can you zoom out and start to think holistically about the industry? What are the opportunities that something like this is going to create? And I don't mean to downplay, you know, people are sick, but you know, we also need to be kind of thoughtful about how can we take advantage of, or, you know, because there's a lot of pains going on, and anytime there's pain and problem, that's where an entrepreneur really comes in and is able to solve that pain, solve that problem, and make money for doing it. So when the pain increases like it is right now, we need to be kind of, you know, very entrepreneurial and think holistically. Yes, surviving is very important, but thriving is also as important. Don't just make it through this. Make it through this a better company, to expound on what Ray said.
So to add in just a couple more points in our last couple minutes is every time the market does this, goes up or down, it creates opportunity. And so there's opportunities here for the folks that are ready to potentially take on some of those homes from the owners, because there might be a mass sell-off. There might be a point to where the market dips and these owners that we're representing don't want these homes any longer. There might be a bunch of reluctant landlords that are ready to just dump these homes. Well, you as the property management company business owner, you guys need to be ready, and gals, you all need to be ready to potentially take advantage of that situation to assist your owners in giving them what they want. If they want to be out of that home, you should be the first in line to potentially write them a contract to buy them out. And then you can turn that around and put that right into your management company and build that asset. Let the management company build your asset, and that's how you're going to do it. The other way to take advantage is, you know, look at your pricing model, look at your business development. Are you able to capture a lot more business right now just by being one of the good players in your market? If you're one of the good players, all the realtors that are trying to do real estate and they're trying to do property management and the market dies, they're going to go out of business. They're going to be delivering pizzas and washing cars like we saw in 08 and 09. And so that's when the good companies rise above the rest and start to gather that market share. They're going to all come to you, the good property management companies, and they're all going to leave the self-management behind. They're going to leave the most dangerous animal in the free market behind, which is a licensed realtor acting as a property manager. That's the most dangerous animal out there. And so when they start leaving them and coming to the legit property management companies, that's where we all win and build our companies. Last minute thoughts.
That's it. I think Matt hit it on the head. That's the ending note. Look for the opportunities. As you mentioned, Brad, there's going to be them present themselves. So, and get lean. I think getting lean is important.
Yeah, I would say, again, get lean, but also, I mean, Ray even helped me with this, have a great sales organization. Like the first thing people think about when they cut back is sales. But I think on the backside of this, if there's, managers that go out of business, people are going to be picking up the phone and calling. We just need to be prepared for those calls in, 90, 120 days. So Brad, thanks for having us on.
Yeah. Thanks, Brad.
Ray. Yeah. Thanks, Ray, for coming on, gents. We'll talk to y'all very soon. All right. Take care.